This is episode number 63 of the 1% podcast. On today's episode, we have Miss Di Foster. Di was diagnosed with terminal cancer and only given 1 year to live. Here we are 10 years later, and Di tells her amazing story of how she was able to be happy, be grateful, go natural, and how she was even able to have a child 14 months later after she was given 1 year to live. Absolutely beautiful story. I'm so excited for you guys to hear it. Be sure to check out the 1%podcast.com. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 1% Podcasts. And be sure to share this episode with whoever you feel like is going to benefit from it the most. Dig in and enjoy the 1% Podcast.
You have cancer. 3 words that change a life forever. We would like to offer another 3 words. Be an overcomer. Welcome to the 1% Podcast, where our conversations with other cancer warriors, survivors, and caregivers allows us to give you that extra boost you need to face your challenge head on, live life from a new perspective, and forge a path that keeps you moving free and clear. Now, welcome your host and cancer survivor, Truett Taylor.
Man, it feels so good to be back in the booth with you guys. Today's episode I actually recorded at the end of 2019. I met this amazing person named Di Foster through LinkedIn. She had a chance to hear some of the stories that we were sharing on the podcast, and she reached out to me. We had a brief chat, and just in those few moments of us chatting, I knew we were going to be friends forever. What's great about her is she has an amazing accent. We had a chance to roast each other's accents a little bit before we started, but we had an amazing conversation. And here's one thing I want you guys to think about as you listen to the show. You'll hear her say she was given 1 year to live. And the man that she was dating at that time, she didn't tell him exactly what the prognosis was once she received it. When he asked, she just said, we'll take this one day at a time. And she was given 365 days left on the earth, according to her doctor. And she had a choice how she was going to live those 365 days. And she made a great choice, and she lived each day with a purpose and with gratitude and happiness, and made some changes and adjustments to her diet and different things that she was doing. But, it's a good thing she made that choice, because here she is 10 years later celebrating an amazing 10-year cancer anniversary and being completely healthy. And we're so excited to have you guys just really get to know and enjoy Di as much as I did. She's really amazing. I want you guys to reach out to her. Tell her what you learned from her episode, how you were able to connect with some things that she was saying. As always, drop us some comments, give us some feedback on the episode. I love reading those comments. I love reading the reviews that we're getting on iTunes as well too. So whatever podcast platform you're using, just be sure to continue to look out for the 1% Podcast. We've got tons of great episodes coming out for you guys. So guys, I want you to enjoy my interview with Miss Di Foster. Di, how are you doing today?
I am peachy as. Thank you so much for asking.
I'm excited to have you on the show and share your story with everyone. You have a wonderful perspective that I can't wait for everyone to talk about. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about where you're from and what you're currently doing right now.
Look, I'm from New Zealand, here down under. I live in Christchurch. We're a really interesting city in that we've been through a number of traumatic events over the years. We've had massive earthquakes, and we've had some, a terrorist attack this year. So we're an interesting city in itself. And through the middle of that, I've, had some challenges myself. But I've always been into business and into mentoring, and I do executive advisory now. And I just try and make the best of every day, I guess is what I do.
Absolutely. And you have a wonderful cancer story to share with everyone today. Why do you feel like it's important for you to be able to share your story with everyone?
Look, I think through life we all encountered challenges, and one of the things that when I was going through my own challenges that I observed is reading or immersing myself in incredible stories allowed me to have hope and an understanding at a cellular level that it is possible for the body to heal. Now, I didn't get attached to the fact that that would necessarily happen for me, but I still found so much hope and joy in that it might happen for others. Absolutely. And that it was the very possibility that it could happen. I found joy and hope in that.
I love it. Well, let's jump right into your cancer journey. Tell us what your life was like prior to your cancer diagnosis. What were you doing? What was your life like? What did you have
Okay.
going on? Where were you working? All those things.
So I've had two cancer diagnoses. The first one was when I was 31 years old, and at the time I was doing management contract work, and I was working up and down the country, just taking on contracts as they came up, and loved my life, loved the possibility of where I was going, and just building a career in my early 30s, and just incredibly happy with doing that. And, as I said, I was working in different places for 6 months at a time and just taking on different contracts. So quite an exciting time for me, and I really enjoyed what I was doing at the time. I guess being diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer at 31 kind of tipped my world upside down, I guess we could say. And the plans that I had for the future just stopped everything in its tracks, because wasn't much point planning for too much in the future unless I was actually going to be here.
Yeah, it's wild. I'm sure I was diagnosed when I was 31 as well too. It's definitely not what we expected to have happen at that time. So you were diagnosed at 31. Tell us about what that day was like when you first were diagnosed. What did you feel? What do you remember about that day? And give us a little bit of insight on that.
So I had been getting fit because I was going to be back in Dunedin, so I was going to do a karate grading, and so I'd been getting fitter, and I literally had found a lump in my breast because I'd lost weight, because I'd reduced my weight down a little bit, and I thought, I don't think that should be there. So we went and got it checked, and then we were going to wait another 3 weeks and get it rechecked. And I was on my way back from having lived in the North Island. So in order to come back, I was bringing my truck back, and I was on the ferry. It's an hour and a half ride on the ferry. And I pulled into the car park on the ferry, and my phone rang, and at the same time, this massive, big, heavy door on this huge ferry went clunk. And something inside of me went, shit just got real and life's about to change. And so I rang my doctor back, and she said, are you with somebody? And I said, yes, I am. And she said, I need you to get to Dunedin as quickly as you can, because you'll be in surgery within the next week. And she said, unfortunately, you've got a very aggressive type of breast cancer, and you're very young, and we need to get onto this straight away. And I guess for an hour and a half, I gave myself the privilege of feeling sorry for myself. And I sat on that ferry, and we shouldn't have probably even sailed that day. There was like 2.5 meter swells, and it was just horrendous. And I just cried and cried and cried. And I got off the ferry at the other end, and I thought that if our greatest challenges bring us our greatest gifts and our greatest lessons, then I needed to put my safety belt on, because by God, I was going to learn from this experience anything I could. And if there are silver linings in clouds, then I was about to find mine.
Prior to this moment, have you suffered or have you experienced any kind of other traumatic event in your life before?
I wouldn't say any other traumatic event. I'd had some health issues because I don't have any IgA in my blood, which is not uncommon. I have too much IgE, which is not uncommon. But I'd had a number of sort of niggly things, but nothing serious or nothing, and I was very fit, healthy, never smoked, virtually didn't drink, very healthy, no family history. I was the poster child for, fairly wellness and for managing my own health.
Right.
Absolutely. It's very, very good at managing my own health and keeping well.
So when you were diagnosed, what was the exact diagnosis that you were given?
Ooh, at the time I was given, it was a grade 4 tumor in my breast. It was like, I can't remember the length. I'm not very good at remembering all of those medical details because I don't hold on to them. Literally, I would say that's my super skill, is that I don't hold on to the drama or the thing that's happening. So it was quite large. And my surgeon said to me, the issue we have, Di, this is not what you want to hear from a really good-looking surgeon in your 30s. I'm telling you now, Di, what we have is a very large tumor in quite a small breast. I was like, awesome. Great that you noticed my breast, but not quite the context that I was looking for. So from the perspective, I didn't have a choice. I needed to have it surgically removed because it was quite aggressive. I was quite young. And so they were very clear that it was ductile cancer that was aggressive in my breast, and I was quite young, and they were concerned about it spreading. So the treatment option was to have it surgically removed, then go through chemo, and then have radiotherapy. And I was very alternative in my thinking, and I sat down and I meditated for 7 days after I had that conversation with the surgeon. I said to him, "Well, think about it." And he said, "I don't think you understand. You don't have a choice." And I said, "I don't think you understand. We all have choices. This is my life, and I will choose how it gets played out." And he said, "Well, I think you're going to die if you don't have the treatment." And I said, "That's fine, but I think I'll have a much better success rate if I choose the treatment myself and not just accept that you're telling me I have to do it. I understand that you have, you're a specialist in this area, but I'm a specialist in my own life. And the biggest thing that I can do in this moment is to feel that I have a choice, and that if I choose to have this treatment, then I'm not blaming you for having it, that I'm actually taking responsibility for having it myself." So I went home and I meditated for 5 days, and I always got a ticking, like a ticking time bomb, for want of a better word. And I just knew in my heart that even if I didn't necessarily think this treatment was the only option, it was my option this time round. And so I did. I had surgery, and it was really interesting. I was talking to my sister this morning, and I said, I've never felt angry about the way I look now. I chose not to have reconstruction. I chose to have right mastectomy and to just be happy with, how I look. And I've never felt angry, or I've never hated my body. I've embraced the way I look now. We have a few laughs about it, in terms of, I'm not, I don't have headlights. I'm just a single motorcycle, and, all of that sort of stuff. It's just been my way of dealing with it. And I really did embrace, like, I remember having the surgery, and I remember just being so incredibly grateful for so many things, and just really focusing on my gratitude. And I went into the surgery in my happy place, and I just knew that one day, at the time I had a boyfriend, and I knew that he wasn't entirely happy with the surgery options I chose, but I knew in my heart that one day, if I was to meet somebody, he would love me exactly as I was, and I would feel more comfortable naked with him than I did on my own. And I just knew that. I knew that I wasn't with that man at the time, but I knew that one day I would meet that person if it was meant to be. And so I had the surgery, and I did lots of things around that to make myself feel feminine, because I didn't feel like it was a loss of femininity.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. And then I went on to have chemotherapy, quite an aggressive chemotherapy. It was fairly tough. And, back in that day, they just had the philosophy that given that I was so young, they threw everything at me. And I said to them, "I'm not sure someone can live through 6 rounds of this." And they said, "We're not sure either, but we'll give it a go." And then I had radiotherapy, which I found to be the most loneliest time of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Just because nobody came with me. I went on my own, and, it was easy. Just went in and had radiotherapy. It was nothing compared to chemo, everyone told you, but it's a hard, lonely 6 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. The type of fatigue that comes with all the radiation as well, too, is something that's kind of hard to explain unless you've been through it before. Just listen to you talk so far. It sounds like you have a very strong sense of being your own advocate and being really confident in your choices. Where do you think that comes from? Is that something that you've always kind of naturally done, is being able to speak up for yourself like that? Or where do you feel like that kind of confidence comes from?
Look, I think that through my teenage years and my 20s, I thought that there were boxes to be ticked, and I had to do it like society told me. And I assumed that if I did that I'd end up happy. And I got to my late 20s and I was flipping miserable. And so I just became very clear after my late 20s that life was going to look different for everybody else. And if I can't advocate for myself, I can't see anybody else can. I am the CEO of my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a lonely job, and I'm the only one that can do it. And even if I have the most amazing family and support around me, but my life is only my job. I cannot, what do you call it? Like, I can't outsource it to anybody else. I have to be my own advocate. If I'm not in tune with what's right for me, I can't see how anybody else in the world can be. And besides, they're too busy running their own life and being the center of their own universe. They haven't got time to be mine as well.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone today that's struggling with making that choice, or struggling speaking up for themselves or being their own advocate, and lacking that confidence to speak up and ask those questions?
Well, I would say suck it up, buttercup. And I mean that with so much love that, look, I get it. I get that we've got triggers from our past. I get that we've got baggage that we're taking with us. Sort that shit out so that you can speak for yourself, because there is literally nobody else that can do it. You are the only person that can be your own voice. And I don't care how you find a way of doing that. I don't care how many people you speak to. I don't care, like I do care so much. I don't, we all have different ways of finding that voice. It is not natural for most of us to do it, but there are ways of finding it. And you just keep trying until you find the way that you can speak up for yourself in whatever way that means for you. I haven't always been great at it. I've had to find my voice, and I've just had to be strong. And the thing that I would say is, because I get asked a lot, what did your, like more so around my second diagnosis, but I get asked, what do people think? And I simply say, I don't know. Because if you don't ask, and if you're clear and you're confident in your own feet, people don't ask. People don't challenge you. They lovingly accept the place that you're in.
I love that. So talk about your support system a little bit. You said you didn't have a ton of support your first go around. During your second diagnosis, let's talk a little bit about that, and let's talk about the support
Sure.
you had during the second time.
So the second time was really interesting because I'd been unwell for about a year and I hadn't had the medical support that I needed. And I kept getting reoccurring chest infections and I knew it wasn't right. And I just kept going back saying, don't worry about giving me antibiotics. Let's find out what the reason is behind me being unwell. And I just moved to Christchurch. I'd met that man that absolutely adores me just the way I am and has never seen me as needing to be fixed or that anything's wrong with me. And I remember, very personal here, but I remember the first time he saw me naked, and the next day I thought, holy shit, I'm more comfortable walking around naked with him than I am looking in the mirror on my own. It's like, he must be the one for me, because this is fun. And so, I'd moved to Christchurch to be with him, and we had a beautiful relationship, and I'd just consistently been unwell. And then I went to karate for the first class in the new year, and I got a really specific punch to the chest. And I just remember dropping to my knees, and I remember thinking, there is something wrong, and I need to get this sorted because this shit is not good. And the guy that hit me tapped me on the shoulder and said, are you hurt? And I said, no, I'm just winded. And he said, well, suck it up. And I remember chasing him down the dojo, trying to take his head off. I've just never been so angry in my whole life. I still don't think I've probably forgiven him. And then I went away, and within 8 weeks, I had a fully collapsed lung. I was very, very unwell very quickly. So it had escalated it. And so I rang a really good friend of mine and I said, look, I'm in trouble. And he said, I need you to go to an acupuncturist. I need you to go to this doctor. We need to get you a diagnosis. And within 2 weeks, I'd had a diagnosis. And I was diagnosed with terminal secondary breast cancer metastasized in my lungs. And I was given a prognosis of 12 months, a life expectancy of 12 months with 0% chance of 18. And I guess over the next week or so, I was sitting in oncology and I heard this funny little oncologist giving me this prognosis. And interestingly enough, I let my partner at the time, who I'm still with, I let him hear the diagnosis, but I asked him to leave the room for the prognosis. I didn't want anybody to know that I only was expected to live for 12 months because I didn't want it repeated. I didn't want people to talk about the drama. It was my life. It was my situation. I didn't need them to get into the drama of it all. And so I just had this sense in that moment that while they could offer me palliative care chemo, that was not going to increase my longevity. So I felt really clear that if I only had 365 days left on this earth, then I was going to do 3 things. I was going to be happy for as many days as I could out of 365. I was going to go natural. I was going to let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And I was going to be grateful. Now, if I was to be perfectly honest, I had no flipping idea what I was going to be grateful for, but I knew that I had 365 days to figure it out. And I left that hospital and I thought, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not attached to the outcome of this. Well, I was fairly attached to the fact that I was going to die. I didn't see no reason that they were wrong because I was so unwell. I thought maybe I'd be cheeky enough to ask for 5 years and not 12 months. And so I left the hospital with the context of this is how I choose to live in every day that I do have left. Be happy, be grateful, go natural. 3 things really clear. That's what I was going to do. So that was the context in which I left the hospital, and I knew the framework in which I was going to live. And I think that that's a really important thing, is I chose how I was going to live. So off I went with those 3 things, and I just embraced every day as best I could.
So here you are given basically a year to live. Did you end up telling your partner later that, or when did he find out that you only had a year to live?
When I was well, and he told me I was a pain in the ass again.
How long after that was that?
So pretty much I went off and just did some really random therapies. I did a lot of natural therapies. And about 14 months after my diagnosis, we got married by then. My husband said to me, "You are seriously a pain in the ass again. I'm pretty sure you're well." And I said, "I know. I've felt great for such a long time and consistently for such a long time. I feel great. Like I feel really, really good." And he said, "Sweetheart, what are we going to do with the rest of our lives?" And I said, to add context to this is a man that we check for a pulse. He is literally my rock. We check him for a pulse every now and then because happy face, sad face, angry face doesn't look any different. The man just as steady as she goes. We just check that he has got a pulse and we're all good. And so I said to him, "Let's have a baby. I'm not having children after I'm 40. You've got 6 weeks to impregnate me. Let's have a baby." And he said, very calmly, I must say, he said, "We've been through 5,500 earthquakes so far. We are living at your sister's because we don't know if our house is still standing. We have 2 businesses. They've been relocated. One will be relocated again. Your full-time job is 11 open insurance claims that will determine our financial future. And if we have a financial future." And he said, "Do you think it's a good idea?" And I said, "Yes, I do. I think it's a great idea. Let's just give it 6 weeks. And if we get pregnant, we get pregnant. If we don't, we'll never talk about it again. And we can, fix that, do something a permanent solution for that problem." And he said, "We're living in your sister's house. There's 6 of us here. There is no action going on, darling." And I said, "Don't worry, I've booked a weekend away at Akaroa. You've got 3 nights. I was giving you 6 weeks. You've now got 3 nights to take care of business. So let's just say that dark chocolate going natural in that first 14 months, but 3 nights at Akaroa drinking far too much dark chocolate and port. I came back, and 3 weeks before my 40th birthday, I gave birth to our one and only child, Jackson James Foster."
Wow. Congratulations on that. That's such an amazing thing. I'm sure there's people out there wondering, so you're given 12 months to live, 14 months later, this is the conversation that you're actually having with someone. Yeah. You said you did some kind of natural treatments and stuff like that. So what did you do over those 12 months? I'm sure there's probably people out there now that have been given a terminal diagnosis, and, people go different directions when they're given that news. Some people, do as much as they can. Some people do as little as they can, and, whatever choice they make is on them. But what kind of natural things did you do over that period of time that you felt may have led to the success of you getting past that 12-month mark?
The first thing I'd say, and this is critical, the first thing I did was I tuned into my own heart. And the reason that I say that's critical is that the things that I did, the treatments that I did, are irrelevant unless they're right for you. And when you've got a very short time frame and it's a very confusing time, the single best thing you can do is tune into your own heart and figure out what's right for you. Because there are a number of things that I did, and some of them possibly I didn't need to do, but I tuned in to what felt right at the time, and I kept doing it for as long as it felt right, and I stopped it if it didn't feel right anymore. And the reason that I say that that's critical is there is at least, there is probably 50 things that I did or tried, or supplements that I took, or therapies that I undertook. And the shortcut to it is tune into your own heart and work out whether they're right for you. And so there's a couple of things here. One is I tuned into my own heart. The second thing is I let go of the outcome. I did not take a supplement. I did no therapy. I did not go and see anybody because I demanded that I was going to get well. I did right on my journey of life. And I think that when we demand that we have to get well, I don't think our body responds well to that stress. But when you tune in and you listen to your own body and you let go of the outcome and you just say, I'm going to show up today, and I'm going to show up every day that my feet are on this earth, then that is the shortcut to what you should be doing. And so in doing that, I did some vitamin C treatments. I did a lot of energy healing. I did Reiki. I did acupuncture. I took some very unusual supplements that I probably wouldn't repeat. And I took quite a cocktail of supplements and that, all around how to get the best out of my body, all of as opposed to trying to fix what was broken. So I tried to work with my cancer rather than, grate against it. And at the same time, I became very aware of my thoughts and things from the past and things to let go of, and I left no stone unturned. And I realized also around self-awareness that I was incredibly afraid of dying. And so then I made a pact with death. I said, you can come on my journey with me. I take death everywhere I go. It's in my little suitcase beside me, because death is my very best reminder that my day will come. My day will come that I will not wake up and I will not be on this earth. And so until that day, it's my job to absolutely live the very best I can in the days that I do have, and not give any concern, if possible, or very little concern, to the days that I won't have.
It sounds like to me like mindset's obviously very important to you. You had to really dig into that and just kind of connect with, who you are. I always feel like we're all created very, very uniquely and so individually, with all this special recipe that makes us who we really are. And sometimes it's easy to spend a lot of your time trying to be something you're not, or do something that you're not supposed to do, just because you're either listening to other people and you're taking everyone else's opinion and trying to live the life that they want you to live, or there's so much self-doubt that could be on your mental tape recorder in your head from like a childhood issue or something along those lines, where you're trying to constantly prove something that you don't have to prove to everyone. But when you really kind of draw into who you are, how you were created, and how, just all the attributes and characteristics that you have, there's so much power in that. There's so much power to really move forward. And I feel like that's contagious. And overall, our bodies want to live. Our bodies want to be successful. I mean, constantly, every day, we're always fighting off something every day, and our bodies really want to be successful. And I think the positive mindset definitely plays a part into, whether you're healed from it or not. Like, it definitely plays a huge part into your overall aspect and quality of life, which is great. And all of our days are numbered completely different. And, people that live a shorter life can still have a high quality of life during that time. Same thing, people would live a longer life. And I think it's really important to not have any regret. And one way to not have regret is to go all in. And whether it's in a relationship, or whether you do whatever you do with your body or your mind or whatever it is, it's just go completely all in, because then you gave it your absolute best. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then there's nothing else you could have done about it. So
I totally agree, because I think that's my way of saying letting go of the outcome. So it's like, go all into what you believe and what feels right. We had a baby not knowing whether I was well. We just felt like it was the right thing to do, and we went off and got pregnant without having any tests on whether I was well or not. In hindsight, I'm like, what the hell? But it felt right at the time. We were literally just so happy and celebrating life, not in a really cheesy way, just in a really grounded way.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt right for us. I mean, I still look at my husband, and even though we tease him about, we tease him for that he, does he have a pulse? This is a man that said, yes, I will have a child with you, and I don't expect you to see his 10th birthday. I mean, that's one hell of a man that says, I will have a child with you. I will bring a child into this world with you. And we're not 100% sure whether you'll ever see him grow up.
That's amazing. Have you
Yeah.
guys talked about where that comes from that, I mean, obviously you guys share that same mindset, right? Like that you're going to go all in on what you're doing. It'd be interesting to hear like what he has to, like, why is that something that he's always had in his mind? Or is that something that you guys have been came together and inspired each other to do? Or
I would say that the most amazing superpower that my husband has is that he is so comfortable in his own skin. He has always known who he is. He has never faltered from it. He doesn't understand the philosophy of setting goals or intentions or anything, because he just wakes up in the morning and he freaking knows who he is. I'm like a little bit more all over the place, I'm always trying to do better and, all of that sort of stuff. But our values are the same. Like when we come together, we have so similar values. We might present very differently, but we are so similar. And so, he I don't even understand how he could let me ask him to leave the room and never once ask what the doctors said while he was out of the room. I would be badgering him. I'd want to know what they said. I want to know all the information. But he just has this trust, not only in me, but in life, that it's going to be okay. He has this absolute fundamental trust that it's just going to be okay. If I die, it's going to be okay. If it's anything, it's just, he'll just show up and it'll be okay. And then, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, which astounds me. I remember saying to him once, you do realize that I'm the love of your life, don't you? And he said, yes, of course I do. And I said, well, therefore, when I die, or if I die, there's no point dating. And he said very calmly, if you want to say in who I date or who's my girlfriend, you need to be alive. And I just thought, that rocks. Like I was being a pain, like I was trying to say to him, you need to really love me and not run off with anyone else. But he was like, screw you. I'm not going to be blackmailed on that. I'm not going to be emotionally blackmailed. You need to be alive. So you just work on that, love. And it's like, okay, off I go. I'll work on living. Here I go.
So since
he is a very special type of person.
So since your last cancer diagnosis, you were given 12 months to live. How long has it been since that day when you were told you're going to live 12 months?
In March 2020, it will be 10 years.
10 years.
10
wow.
years.
That's so amazing. I know that gives people hope that are going through a stage 4 terminal diagnosis. And, I'm always really sensitive to the fact that, reality is, some people are healed, some people aren't healed. We have no say-so in that in the long run. Our bodies, our minds, we can go, depending on which way we go with all of that, whether we live a short time or a long period of time. But what we can do is have hope every day that, either we will be cured or just we'll have a great quality of life. And I tell everyone, gratitude is really the key to happiness, because you can be so disciplined and so successful, but if you don't appreciate what you have, who you have, how you live your life every day, then you're not going to enjoy all of that success. We've seen countless times people who've been, very famous and successful in our eyes be some of the most miserable people, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like no matter what your diagnosis is, how long you are being told you have left to live, you could have spent that whole year like completely sad, isolating yourself, ending all of your relationships that you would have been in, really counting the days until you die. And that would have been what you were looking forward to. But instead, you really push forward and look where you are. Like, can you imagine if you were thought, you were going to die every day for 12 months and then it didn't happen. And now here we are 10 years later, like, are you still waiting? What a terrible way to live the past 10 years, right?
Yeah.
The complete opposite.
I I couldn't agree more. And I think that that's really essential because, when I got my diagnosis, yep, I was upset, but I got on with living. I actually got on the next day and thought, right, well, how am I going to spend today? Just like when I did get tested after I had my son, and I went through a number of tests to see whether there was any sign of disease in my body. When we got the results back to say that there was nothing wrong with my lungs, that there was no sign of disease in my body, my husband said, that's good. What are we having for dinner? Now, that is the funniest thing ever to me, because it shows that we had a trust in what the process and what we were doing. We just trusted that our job was to be happy today and not to hang our hat on what other people thought or what specialists thought or anything. We just trusted in ourselves. And I think that speaks volumes to the fact that my goal was not to cure myself. My goal was to cheekily ask for 5 years, not 12 months. But at the same time, my whole focus was on how do I get the most out of every day I do have? And we put so much emphasis on outcomes instead of processes. So my process is I've got today. How do I make today be amazing? There's a philosophy around one day, one lifetime, and that is how do I make today represent my life? Now, if I do that every day, I get multiple lifetimes, because each day is a representation of my whole life. Each day I get joy and I experience sadness and I allow that in and I learn from it. And I don't necessarily try and change it. I just understand that, life is made up of good, bad, right, wrong, some shitty things, some joy, some love, some angst, But I guess the thing is, for me, is two things. One, I didn't evict my cancer. I thought maybe I could live with it. And two, I believe that we cannot dream big enough. My biggest dream would have been to get 5 years. I got 10 years and I'm cancer free. I could not have dreamed that. That dream was too big for my brain to comprehend. So instead, I just broke it down into what's the purpose of life? Its the purpose is to show up every day and do the best I can. Not to worry about the things I can't control, not to change the past because I can't control that either, but to be present in today, to be in my feet today.
I feel like you cannot give away something that you don't have, and what you have, it sounds like, is like a ton of gratitude. And I'm sure through all of your speaking and stuff that you're able to give that away to people and inspire them and really give them hope. One of the last questions I typically ask people on the podcast is, what's the best thing that cancer has done for your life? A lot of people talk about all the negative things, and that's not what this podcast has ever been about. You're going to be sad enough and go through all your own emotions, by yourself. You don't need to listen to other people talk about that. This podcast is obviously meant to uplift people and really give them a good perspective. What would you say would be the best thing that cancer has done for you and your life? Here you are over 10 years later from being told that you wouldn't be here for after a year.
The gift I have been given is absolute gratitude for every day and every moment that I do have with my feet on this earth. And it's interesting, it's a question I've never ever been asked before. In 10 years, I've never been asked that. And as soon as you asked it, I just, like, my eyes just welled up with pure gratitude. Just today, just the fact that I get to experience and share with you, that is a highlight of my day today. And I don't ever take that for granted. I don't take any of my life for granted. I don't take my family for granted. I don't take my mum and dad for granted. I'm at my parents' house today, away from home, and I don't take that for granted. Like every moment I get, I just try to do the best I can with it, and I'm just consistently humbled and grateful for the life that I have and for the opportunities that I've been given.
I absolutely love that. That's so true and so amazing. I'm so glad people have had a chance to hear you and your story and really get a lot of hope and really listen to the gratitude that you have. I like to always acknowledge everyone at the end of our interview, because it takes a lot of courage for someone to get up and say these things in front of a lot of people, because not everyone's ready to talk about their diagnosis or where they're at, or especially their feelings of inadequacy through a mastectomy, or the lack of confidence they may have with a partner, or just their overall quality of life. Being told you have a year to live is not something that everyone hears. And the way you've been able to navigate through that, I think, just adds on to your story, and your story has a possibility and the capability to impact so many people. And I love the way you share it. Your gratitude is so infectious with a lot of people, and that's something that people really need to hear more about. And you can't give away something that you don't have, and you have a ton of gratitude to give away to people. And I hope everyone out there listening right now really takes a moment to stop and think about all the things that you're grateful for, no matter how long we have left to live, because no one knows when that day is coming. No matter how you try to figure it out or what any doctor may say to you, no one knows when that day is coming. And you have an opportunity every day to, kiss your spouse, hold your children, tell your parents that you love them, your friends, your coworkers, whoever you may be around. You have an opportunity to go into that relationship with the intentionality of being grateful. Just the other day, I was traveling from, I'm a contractor here in Atlanta, and I was traveling from one job site to the other, and I saw a guy that's, he was laying, he's a homeless man laying on the steps of a church, and it was raining, and I was looking over at him, and a huge sense of gratitude came over me, because, that could have been me, that could be me. And I don't know his story. I don't know what he's got going on, whether it was life choices or if it's something that he can't control. But I know that, if things would have worked out differently, that could have been me. And at that moment, and, I hate to see a person in that shape. But it does remind us as well to be extremely thankful for the position that we're in. And everyone that's listening right now, I just really, my hopes, my prayers are that you really take in this moment of gratitude and stop and look around and just be thankful for, the ability to get the treatment that you're getting, or to have the family that you're around, or if you're completely alone and isolated and just happen to find the podcast, you've got Di and I here with you today, to connect with you. And we're both open to having a conversation with you, I'm sure. I just put you on the spot for that, but I already knew you were. But tell our listeners what's the best way to connect with you. I know you have a website. It's difoster. That's difoster.com. But what's the best way our listeners can connect with you?
Look, if someone wants to reach out and have a chat, then I'm always up for that, and email me at difoster, difoster.com. And also, if you just want to follow me, or just, follow along the journey, get the vibe, then I'm on Instagram, difoster.live, and I'm also on Facebook, difoster, and LinkedIn, difoster.
Perfect. Well, I'll post links to that so people can connect with you on Instagram, Facebook, and on your website, difoster.com. The email again is di@difoster.com.
Perfect.
Well, it's crazy. I don't know why I just saw this, but your name is Di, but you're 100% alive. I don't know if you've heard that joke before, or that just you have. I'm still not the first.
Die another day.
Yeah, exactly. Die another day. Absolutely. Well, look, here you are over 10 years later, and I'm so grateful that our paths have crossed. And I'm grateful your story's out to so many people across the world that'll be listening to the podcast. So
thank you.
Super excited to have you on here. And again, I'll post links to all your stuff, and we will keep in touch. Okay.
Thank you so much for the connection. Just been a pleasure.
Thank you.
We appreciate you spending time with us on today's episode, and encourage you to continue the conversation to help you keep pushing forward. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as ways to recommend a guest and connect to Truett personally, head over to 1%podcast.com. Be sure to join us next time for more stories of inspiration right here with Truett Taylor on the 1% Podcast.